Morning, everybody. We'll just give it 30 seconds. A lot of people are piling in, so we'll just make sure that everyone joins. Trust everybody's having a good day.
All good, thanks, Neville.
All right, let's get started. So thank you, everybody, for joining this Digital Insight session. This is a BPESA session. I'd like to announce that these sessions are now going to be taking place on a monthly basis. There's been a lot of call from our members that they need more thought leadership, especially when it comes to technology and digital. And just considering the impact that AI is having, there's a lot of requirement for our member base to understand, how they can best leverage AI. I have no doubt that many of our members are actually already deeply involved in using AI at some level. And so with these sessions going forward, we're going to be exploring different areas of the business and how AI can, in fact, have a massive impact in productivity, in efficiencies, and in benefits to the organization. So with that, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us. I'm joined today by Cohen, who's the CEO of iContact. We have David Meintjes, the CEO of Telviva, and we also have Werner Tenten, who is a co-founder of Genie Analytics. And I'm looking forward to spending the next hour with you all. I'm going to be asking each of the panel members to introduce themselves shortly, but first let me just explain what we're going to be doing today. So today, we're diving into something fundamental yet often overlooked in business, conversations. John Maxwell, who is one of my mentors, wisely said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And how do we show we care? Well, it's through meaningful conversations. And we're going to be discussing what that actually means today. So in today's fast-paced world, these conversations are happening across more channels and faster than ever. Customers expect real-time responses, whether they're messaging at lunch, chatting with a bot at 3 a.m., or speaking directly with support. It's not just about keeping up. It's about leveraging these interactions to create better experiences, stronger relationships, and ultimately greater business success. Think of business as a marathon, with each conversation being a step forward. Sometimes you sprint, sometimes you jog, but every step counts. Today we'll explore how real-time communications, AI, automation, and multi-channel strategies can help you not just keep pace, but get ahead. Let's dive in and discover how to make every conversation count. One chat, call, and message at a time. So with that, let's get started. David, can you give us, welcome to the panel, David, Clinton, and Werner. David, can you lead us off and just give us an introduction of where you're from, who's Telviva? I'll hand over to you, David.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, Telviva is a cloud-based provider of infrastructure. We do unified communications as a service and contact center as a service. Our focus is on looking at the quality of the conversation and how we could improve that and optimizing that over many channels. Yeah, so we love the industry, we love the new tech space, and yeah, love to participate in the call.
Thank you, David. I was actually quite surprised. Some weeks ago, I saw the announcement that you'd won a massive technology award at the CEM event. I think it was like the best enterprise technology award. Congratulations on that. You must have been very chuffed about that, I guess.
We were very pleased, but as these awards go, one's got to take it always with a pinch of salt. One is humble about that because there's many other good players out there, and we're just trying to get our space in the sun. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you were up against formidable competition, so well done on that. Then Clinton, thank you for joining us. I think many of you know Clinton, but Clinton, if you could give us an introduction.
Thanks, Neville. Good morning, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name's Clinton Cohen, Chief Executive Officer of iContact BPO. iContact's a specialized customer experience BPO, proudly South African, servicing global customers. And I'm super excited about being on this call together with David and Werner, and looking forward to some engaged conversation as this real-time communication, no matter what the sector, vertical, industry, is key and critical to success. So looking forward to the many thousand routes the conversations may go in today.
So am I. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Clinton. Werner, finally but not least, over to you.
Thanks, Neville, and yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Werner. I'm one of the co-founders of Genie, and currently heading up the commercial operations. And yeah, I think it's such a topical discussion today. I think we live in amazing, exciting times where options are becoming plentiful. So we're all spoiled for choice. So yeah, consumers expect a Netflix type of customer experience. What I mean by that is, just think, when last have you gone to the video rental store to get a movie? It's unheard of these days. I mean, back in the day, you had to go out in the winter cold. You had to drive to the video rental shop, choose a movie, and return it the next day without a penalty. I remember running up tabs in these video rental shops. so all of this has now changed, and the biggest problems we now have is choosing a good movie, and it's such an on-demand customer service or sales or collections or what our clients are looking for. And so how are we helping them to get what they need at that moment of truth? And how are we using a structuring customer conversations to help with that? So that's what the Genie has concerned ourselves for the last 10 years. And to help structure those conversations into readily usable business and operational assets.
Yeah, thank you, Werner. We'll get into some of those points shortly, but let me kick the panel off and just Clinton, maybe let me ask you, how does real-time communication influence customer behavior, and what specific impact does it have on business revenue?
If that's a really great question, and if I take a minute to decipher or step back a little bit from the conversation, where the road to understanding the real-time communication, as you mentioned in the intro, customers want to talk to businesses when they want to talk to businesses, whether it's 3 a.m., whether it's in self-service channels, chats, all these critical components of what best serves the customer has stripped the conversations of what, possibly a decade or two ago were about businesses telling customers how the customer will talk to business. And that, as we go into this digital transformation, that world of operation has changed. And more today, businesses are adapting their own workflows, work streams through the use of technology in terms of really understanding that voice of the customer. Just to add on to that and to answer your question in maybe a bit more detail, is customers communicating with business today, and it's the data and information that the business has on hand about the customer allows the likes of contact center agents, BPOs like myself at the forefront to be able to really understand what is the customer's need, how best to serve that customer. And it has multiple impacts. First and foremost, I think any customer contacting a business, the first and foremost area that needs to be taken care of is the customer experience. Has that journey of the customer coming into the contact center or at that point of channel communication, are they being looked after? Are they being supported? Because the business brand has spent so much time and so much effort to acquire the customer that that experience needs to be amazing. The more impactful, the more positive outcomes from a customer experience for that business brand will ultimately lead to brand loyalty, increased revenue, whether through sales or service. And it's really in that core that this real-time communication, that the access to that information and data can better be used by contact center agents at the forefront to best serve the customer. I hope that's given a little bit of context or a little bit of insight to answer the question, Nev.
Yeah, you've actually made quite a few. We could spend an hour and a half, maybe two, just getting into some of these points that you made. I mean, you know, the one thing that you mentioned is getting to grips with that voice of the customer, you know, getting to understand, you know, where are your customers? And Werner, you guys do some amazing stuff in that regard from a technology perspective. You wanna tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely agree with what Clinton says. I think understanding the customer conversation and the ability to structure those conversations into readily usable assets has always been a bit of a barrier for a lot of companies. But there's with the advent of conversation analytics types of technologies, that has really become very accessible and more easily be deployable. We have a client who has increased the new sales success rate by 22% and consistent within 3 months just by using conversation analytics and intelligence. They really understood at a much more granular level the key levers and patterns in certain things, such as objection handling, to improve those conversations. So, and it also created a 23% improvement in pain policies. Overall, with new objection handling strategies surfaced from the conversation analytics and other things, they were able to improve their pain policies by 53%. That's on first payment and continuous payment. It's a massive gold mine sitting in conversations. I think what made them good with it is that they restructure the entire organization around conversation analytics and intelligence, relying more on this as their primary data source instead of other traditional metadata sources. So, and that's the challenge. We are so used to using our traditional data sources, which can create a hit and a miss, because we don't really understand the context of those data sources. We don't know the conversations that's happening around those data sources. And we never really had capabilities that can structure that context for us into readily usable assets. But the technologies exist and success, and they've used it successfully, shifting more from a metadata as their primary data source to conversation intelligence as the primary data source over time.
So how do you, and you can achieve this in real time? Because I mean, real time means things are happening in a very dynamic way. You don't know what to expect. The context is not always the same. You know, so I remember in the day when people were trying to create these customer journeys, you know, journey mapping. And I'm sure there's a lot of value in that. but I also know that when those problem or those outlier calls come in, you have no idea what to expect. And how do you guys react to that, or how do you deal with that?
So I think the conversations, yeah, it becomes in a real-time context, it becomes how fast can you act on the data? And I think that's always the case. How fast are you set up to act on the insights and intelligence? Sometimes, and the real time is really a great idea, but the structures to support it is often not feasible for wherever the company is. So real time is important, and I think it should still stay the vision. But there's steps to take before that, before you get to that real time. How do you real time act on those intelligence? And that's almost first and foremost the design imperative around service architecture, sales architectures is to first be able to do that before getting into real-time intelligence, to be able to feed it to those structures.
Yeah. Okay. David, can I? Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
I wanted to add on there, and then I want to pass over the mic to David. But what adding on what Werner said is, today many businesses have these technologies or have these maps or workflows part of their structure, but you're seeing more and more that organizations are evolving with the digital technology. And when we think about a contact center, if I understand the customer coming in and have a 360-degree view of the history of that customer, if Neville calls in today with a complaint and he's been struggling, there's a real picture of Neville, and Clinton, the frontline contact center agent, can understand that Neville's called in 16 times before this with a complaint about a failed service delivery. I'm already enabled on the front foot to have a picture of Neville coupled with further communication in real time to see how best I serve Neville, calm his frustrations down, resolve his query, and let him move forward. And David probably understands and can share more about the technology-based stuff around us.
Yeah, hi Neville. It's an interesting topic, this, but as in all things, the basics always remains the basics. When we look at it, first call resolution is always one of the top requirements or top targets in most contact centers. So one can add the concept of lowest friction next to it, so that it's speedily and it's easy for the user to work with, and their technology can help you a lot with. But the other side is very true, is that it needs to be digital when I want it, but human when I need it. And it must be seamless a transition as well. And if one looks at the foundational layers of this, it does mean that one needs one communication system where you've got a single view on your customers. But that single view you need to extend not only to your agents, but to the back office as well. But it is quite reliant on your business systems and integration into business systems. If you want to use the technology and any of the AI components in that, which requires systems which offers APIs, which you can build the integrations into. But it's dependent on the business processes, and it's very dependent for that lowest friction dimension to focus the journeys.
Yeah. To me, David, in addition to those real-time communications, I'm assuming that, the multi-channel now also comes in, you've got other alternative channels, and you've got technologies like AI. You've got automation, where you can automate certain, based on what you know about the context, the customers, the need, etc. You can actually automate some stuff. Can you talk into that a little bit in terms of your experience as far as leveraging these new technologies are concerned?
Yeah, I think that it's a journey for most organizations. You don't swallow the whole elephant at once. So I'll perhaps start on to reference case studies local. There's in the financial services sector, a virtual agent deployed It reduced the operating cost by 50%. 98% is first contact resolution, and there's been a 52% increase in sales. The other example I've got is a company in transport. They do a lot of intercity transport. They did a voice-only solution to their customers, and they did channel deflection into WhatsApp, and a third of their traffic went into that, and it's mostly self-help now. So it's quite significant strides that you can make in doing things differently by putting more channels in, and then really looking at the customer journeys and what the customer prefers, and also offering the channel of choice to those customers. But when one looks at the overall reasons, what the things one would try and expect out of that is, number one is actually to be able to offer 24/7 service. So when your physical agent is not there, you do have some way to service your customers, because some customers can't use the office hours to service themselves because they're busy. And then you're able to, in time, initially and all over time, look at more personalized experiences, whether you do the customer data analysis and you build profiles, personas in your customer base. You can tailor recommendations. You can do some predictive things on those customers. And then if you look at the efficiency of the customer service part, clearly, if you can get into the automation layer, you take traffic away from the humans, and it releases the humans to deal with the real complex matters, which then leads to a better customer experience. It does enable the customer to have faster response times and gives a more consistent experience when you've got the automation layer in place. But the real benefits comes in enhanced customer insights, because that's where you'll gain more and that you can build a deeper relationship with your customers. These are obviously more relevant for business to consumer than what it is business to business, but it's not exclusively limited to business to consumer side. And lastly, cost reduction is an outcome of all of these and doing things more efficiently.
Yeah. Wow, a couple of nice stats you've raised there. I've tried to capture them as much as I can, but
it's interesting that how technology's changed in the last 3 decades. In the 90s, the voice error rate on digital agents was around about 40%, so close to non-usable. And then 2010, it was down to 16%. And then 2018 was about 6%. Now, we've all used Siri or services like that. Now, it's right down to 1 to 2%. So at the moment, it's very usable and works very elegantly when you want a voice agent. But if you just want a conversational text-based agent, we can capture the intents and work with that. Those technologies had been more mature even earlier. There's organizations which have been doing it in South Africa for the last 14 years. There's organizations internationally have been doing it for the last 20, 25 years. So it's a fair amount of maturity ready to be deployed.
Yeah. Are you seeing organizations that did a project maybe 10 years ago, there was a complete failure because of the high error rates, and they're just not ready to jump back in again, even though the technology has advanced quite significantly? Or is there a openness to actually embrace these new technologies?
Gosh, I can't, I'm not aware of a customer that adopted too early and burnt their fingers. They certainly will be. And in generally, the corporate memory are such a nature that you're only famous for the failures you did, not famous for the good things that you've done.
Yeah.
That's why, there will be a level of skepticism and uncertainty that one has to deal with. But the one thing that is very relevant and important to take note is that because many of these services are cloud-based, the security posture of the provider becomes quite significant in that. And in particular, when you're dealing with large organizations, but as relevant to the small organizations, because the zero trust policy, what one needs to follow to any of your service you consume in the cloud is critical. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Clinton, I mean, how does this resonate with you? I mean, when we start talking about self-service and pulling things out of the voice channel and plugging them into bots, and and the bots are here to rule. I mean, how does that affect your operation?
Nev, in today's world, it's an absolute essential, and many conversations have gone historically around, is there a concern for the contact centers? Are they going to become obsolete? Absolutely not. To lay at what David said, the agents today are going to have more time focused on critical care components, critical care issues that maybe technology self-serve don't support or can't serve, allowing more time attention. In contact centers today, it's absolutely essential to have the mix of all of it. But the most important thing, because early adoption people do and rewarded for that from the entrepreneurial spirit by doing it, the caution into the wind, and I think all of us have experienced it, is when the business flows haven't been sought after or haven't been thought through and are absolute fails, where a customer in a self-serve channel trying to serve, wanting to speak to a human, I've experienced that where it's physically impossible. And what ends up happening, and I keep going around in this automated bot web of menu. No, thanks. I want to speak to a human being. I walk away from that with a negative brand reputation, negative brand experience, and I want to change the service provider. So that's not a good outcome. And I think it's really critical that businesses are open to the conversation, saying, well done for taking the leap of faith into the digital transformation and trying new things, but being open enough to take the criticism to say you're not servicing your customer. And I certainly agree with all the efficiencies and productivities that it can serve customers by allowing them to do themselves or by having the access to information through bot and technology. But when the crux comes down to it, and I want to speak to a human being, even if it is just to welcome them to the business, welcome them to the brand, explain the key critical component in the resolution of their query, they need to walk away with a good customer experience. And that remains core and critical to, contact centers on the front line.
Yeah. I just want to emphasize something that you said, David. I've heard it before, and I don't know how many people actually missed this comment you made. But you said digital when I want it and human when I need it. And I think that sort of encapsulates what you are saying, Clinton, is that while these digital channels are convenient and provide a lot of cost efficiencies and convenience, there are those many times where people just say, man, just let me speak to an agent. And so, yeah, sorry, David, I interrupted you there.
So did I. No, what I was going to add to Clinton, it's definitely critical if one embarks on this, any digital automation of any sorts, that the design components gets the right level of time and input and gets tested, whether it actually would work, the design of, to not frustrate the customer, because then it's worse than what it was before.
Yeah,
absolutely agree.
Werner, are you guys using or starting? I know you are starting to use AI and some of these advanced technologies in your approach to how you deal with your customers.
Yes, absolutely, Neville. I think in terms of what we provide to clients as conversation and analytics technologies, it supports both the monitoring of surface intelligence or intelligence several layers deep on any channel and coverage on most languages, most vernacular languages. And so to understand the consistent experience of clients, these technologies become vital in not only understanding downstream, what we call downstream or agent controllable aspects and what's within their control to have a better outcome and how to improve performance, but also those things outside of the agent's control or upstream. So So conversational AI as a category of technologies is as we know, is the ability to talk to someone using a bot and a large language model, and to help a customer with their need. And exactly what Clinton was said. How do we monitor those breakdowns? How do we either can exit it, or but after the fact, are we monitoring that to the full extent on a high level or a deep level? Um, on the other hand, the conversation analytics intelligence is the ability to highlight those patterns from conversations that will support optimizing customer engagement. Um, there are several techniques and technologies to do this. One we're all familiar with is speech analytics or interaction analytics, which is really the monitoring capability on the surface level, and the other being interaction intelligence, which is really about unlocking those patterns hidden several layers deep. Um, so both these technologies use AI to enrich the outputs. And what we've seen is that delivering these solutions to clients, it's really supported them in creating those wow moments and at the moment of truth, and further reduce those error rates David was talking about. So it's quite exciting part of all, exactly what Clint also saying, in essence, that it's man and machine working together, and how do we provide for that in creating those wow moments.
Yeah. So how do we pull all this together? How do we create that seamless customer experience? Given that there are multiple channels, there are multiple stuff going on. I remember back in the 90s, it was quite simple, but the challenge was real. Back then it was, you've got a customer that has a problem. You need to respond to that requirement, and you need to give the customer what they needed. Yeah, we are in 2024, and I can read out that exact same sentence, and that's exactly what we need in the industry right now. There's a customer with a problem. They have various options as to how they can communicate and connect with the organization, but they need a specific outcome that's going to meet their requirements. How does one make sure that, given you've got all these different channels, that you're creating that seamless move across channels, that from your perspective, Werner, how do you actually collect those insights in real time? And David, maybe from your side, how do you make sure that those channels are connected? And then I think, Clinton, from your side, you can maybe bring it up at the end and just give us the practical view of it. So I don't know, David, what's your view on this?
Sure. No, thanks, Neville. I think the traditional challenges is equally present. It's about an experience that we want to create on a voice channel first and foremost, because that's mostly where there's a lot of emotion as well. And so, and in other words, so what are companies then using to monitor those emotional discussions, or even I mean, you can equally get emotional on chat. I think sometimes you can get easier emotional on chat. Just thinking about it now, it's like, but how do we do that? And I think it's almost like likened to, if we look at our customer engagement channels, like sort of vast ocean. On the surface, everything seems calm, and the water sparkles on the sun. And the first type of technology is like a lighthouse. It scans the surface, ensuring that everything appears to be running smoothly. So it sees the waves, the ships, any surface level disturbances. It's reliable, and it gives you a good idea of what's happening at a glance. In contact centers today, to bring it more practically, this technology is like a call monitor. It listens to every call, checking for quality, script adherence, and customer satisfaction. And this call monitor ensures that interactions on the surface are smooth, and your team are following the rules. It's reliable for spotting immediate issues like long hold times, missed protocols. And that's where the speech analytics is a great use and a use case, and especially in organizations such as where compliance becomes a big factor. But then there's other technology, one that's more like a submarine. And this one just doesn't skim the surface. It dives deep beneath the waves. It's exploring multiple layers below. It can see the undercurrents in these conversations. It can detect the hidden issues, discover what's really driving the movements on the surface. It reveals a more comprehensive picture, not just what's visible. And in contact centers, that this can be likened to a customer analyst. The analyst doesn't just listen to calls. They deep dive into the data behind conversations. They analyze customer sentiment, identify recurring issues, and uncover the patterns and behavior that might not be obvious just from the call monitoring. And they can also tell you why a customer is frustrated. And I think that's the key thing is in monitoring and ability to monitor the conversations. We need to understand the intent, the why. Why did it break down? Several layers deep. So yeah, I think just to sort of bring it all together, the combination and integrated approach of these type of capabilities is essential. One might use a light type technology like speech analytics or interaction analytics to keep your finger on the pulse, and let's call it a submarine type technology, interaction intelligence, to know what to do about the opportunities. But and so the benefits, I think, or more the promise of having bots and AI-driven tools are great, but how do we continuously monitor them as we do our current customer engagement without conversational AI, and really uncover the intelligence to further scale it?
Yeah, I think that, Neville, if one looks at adopting this, I think there's different things. Firstly, one's got to say the choice of customers is to choose the channel which they'd like to talk to the organization with. So if you're not servicing them on that channel, you're mute, you're silent, you're absent. So therefore it comes about convenience. So if one looks at those channels of choice and one looks at the reason why a person speaks to organization, I'm going to use just 5 types. Often it's just about a frequently asked question or a query, a question that they've got. Mostly those kind of things can be automated in a digital context, with a conversational tool and actually to deal with that. If one deals with a sales opportunity, generally one will present the information digitally to be able to consume, to be able to make up their minds. But it could mean that it depends on the kind of organization. If it's an online store, it's all digital. If it's not an online store and does other things as well, it could require a voice interaction at that point. But it does require a single journey so you can see what's happened with that customer, so that the context of the previous engagement, what the customers looked at, comes through to the agent at that very point in time. If one deals with queries, logging the query is digital, but dealing with the query might have to be a voice agent. And the same with contracting. Where there's contracting involved with the customer, that can mostly be done digitally. But if one considers organizations mostly adopt email, SMS, and voice at the moment, and they're expanding it mostly to WhatsApp at the moment. But to get a single view of all these engagements in one system becomes critical, because having a disparate disables the agent to deal with things in context, which is critical because it's the context part that's important. And if one considers the organization, it's not about being reactive relative to the customer. Yes, one's got to deal with that part, but it's getting proactive relative to the customer, seeing the opportunity in the customer. Every person in the organization is a brand ambassador for that organization, and seeing the opportunity with the customer and prompting that opportunity. So it definitely lies in that space. And one, just as a rule of thumb, the things which will go digital is the low complexity items, which generally are of a high volume.
How's this
Neville,
impacting? Yeah.
I think in support of the conversation, when we look at it from a contact center perspective, it's really about understanding where the client is at, because not all clients are the same. You've got extremely mature, robust clients who understand that this technology, digital world, and having all the information on hand is key critical to the contact center agent's success. But there's also very many businesses who haven't thought about that. And that kind of bolts back to David's earlier discussion that the design component is so critical, how you bring all the technology, systems, platforms together, whether single view or other, but single view ideally, enabling your contact center agent at the forefront to have real-time communication effectively. And in this point, if I think about logistics organizations, and it was spoken earlier on with through WhatsApp and how the technology helped that side of the business, similarly, same from a customer experience logistics case study is when a customer's calling in to ask, how can I help? Where's my order? The agents today are able to connect into third-party integrated sites who handle those logistics deliveries and are clearly able to tell you, Neville, on Tuesday at 10 a.m. delivery will be made. So that's one tiny aspect of the entire journey where today, again, it was mentioned a few minutes ago, if agents have access to the knowledge base, the knowledge centers, that if the customer self-served would have got that answer, today the agent doesn't really even have to think about that and the 17,000 frequently asked questions, but that it's readily available to them at a quick search, at a quick look, at a quick glance to communicate that through a voice channel. But that's the preferred communication that the customer wants to talk to business. Key critical again, because you've got to meet the business on their journey and their customer on their journey. And the last thing I want to end off is we started with an organization, a client who wanted to outsource purely voice. And we know in today's world that, they just weren't answering their telephones. And today they outsourced some work and we supported them. And all of a sudden they had a service level agreement or some metrics to be able to look at. And then it was about, well, what do we deem good? Or what do they deem good? And again, it's holding a customer's hand, client's hand, walking that journey in their business, being as a contact center on the forefront, but offering suggestions back in, saying, hey, for example, you're only talking to your customers by voice, but guess what? Your customers want to talk to you through chat, whether it be live chat messaging or WhatsApp, whatever those. Again, it's about trying to educate the customer in terms of what we on the front line see from their customers' experience.
Tenten, I'm going to come back to you in a second, but I want you to think about what is the biggest lesson in this regard, the discussion that we're having today. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned in the last 12 months that you can just speak to us about? And then, Werner, I want to ask you, given the customers that you are currently dealing with today, what are the biggest issues and the biggest mistakes that you see them making, where if they put effort into that, they could significantly improve their operations?
Sure, thanks. So I think the biggest challenge or mistake or opportunity is really I think number one, I think not a lot of clients know what's really out there from technology advancement. I mean, with the advancement of technology is moving so fast, and so you're talking to stakeholders that is firefighting, that is in the operation, creating great customer experiences, and that's the business. The business is to do right, is to do that. But how do they really know at the fingertips what technologies are there for certain things? And I think with that, it's having the ability to monitor and deep dive the conversations in a structured way, in a way that's easy to use, in a way that can be operationalized. Because I think a lot of technology also holds a promise, which is great. It holds a vision, and it should. But also to understand how you can do it and operationalizing it effectively. I think the biggest dangers currently is that call center execs and contact center or customer engagement execs is drowning in data, and where one tends to gravitate towards the data you have on hand. But because of the shift in dynamics in the consumer of wanting an on-demand type of resolution right there at the moment of truth, we've seen the best success of what these execs do to prioritize the outside in view, the customer's view, the customer conversation, and build out the other supportive data around it. And it is a journey. So if you follow and attend to the opportunities presented in those customer conversations, then we've seen the best way to accelerate those objectives.
It sounds like what you're saying is that there can be so much effort on trying to make sense out of what you've got. You know, I think there's that saying, you've got that vested or that investment that's been made already in the organization, and so you have to get it working. You have to actually get it to produce what you intended it to produce. And it just sounds like what you're saying is that people can get so consumed with trying to fix what they have, that
Sure.
what they really need to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, what they really need to do is step out, take a view of the data, you know, because obviously I agree with you. I think companies have too much data, but actually analyzing it and saying, you know, is there a better way? And actually, I guess, being brave, right, in terms of actions going forward.
Absolutely, Neville. Knowing where to start is key, and so we've helped companies in a different ways. We've helped companies where we were struggling. They said, "Listen, I can't do anything with our CSAT measure. It's only a measurement. Well, how do I create actionable intelligence out of my CSAT programs?" We've had companies that said that, listen, they know QA is dead. Traditional QA, they don't. It's a tick box exercise, got no value. In certain cases, it does have a lot of value, especially in your compliance-heavy type of environments. It's very important. But there's already automation capabilities, and that also holds a danger to our workforce, because what are we doing to make them ready for the next? And that's what we busy doing as well. We've launched the academy, where we've created the ability for quality assessors to become analysts, because we can foresee what the technologies are meaning as a threat, because the technology is so maturing, the error rates, like David is saying, so maturing. So what are we doing to continuously help upskill workforce and get them future ready, not being quality scorecard, tick box type of approaches, but being an analyst, deep diving the data and helping create more value in an organization. But yeah, knowing where to start is key. As I mentioned, there's just a couple of conversation technologies, and often the approach is needed in a phased approach, whatever the immediate need is, and then create wins out of that and gradually go to the next.
Excellent. David, what about you? I mean, are you seeing, how are you helping your clients? Because I know I think if you come with a more of a packaged approach, you actually can help clients get past their confusion, right?
Yeah, in a certain way, one's got to say technology is only there to serve a purpose. So the end game is not the technology. The end game is the user experience and the customer journey, and does it offer you first call resolution with least friction? Or if it's the other way around, that is actually a customer acquisition process, and it delights the customer to the point whereby it starts the foundation right for greater customer loyalty down the line. And I'm just reflecting on some use cases that I've seen just with the text-based agents as an example. But lead qualification is one, debt collection conversations, query and dispute handling, renewals of upgrades. So the automated query and dispute handling. Agent Assist is something that is predicated on a knowledge management system, and in a certain sense, that knowledge management systems in the past might have had an internal view. Now you want to have an external view, because the more you expose that very same knowledge management system in a conversational text base to your customers, the customer can help themselves in the same way that it would have helped the agent to assist themselves. In terms of life insurance claims, just normal insurance claims, and just travel complaints. Now, you don't have to go too far to say, well, if you look at booking.com, how automated that process is, any of the online shops, how automated that process is. So, but those are different kind of businesses. You know, so not every business is like that.
Mm.
It's interesting that even the space of applications is still relevant and still a channel, if you consider that. You know, if you look at a company like L'Oreal, the beautician, they got a digital beauty application. They launched that in 2018. In that year that they launched it, in that health sector, 33% of YouTube's traffic went to that to L'Oreal, 25% of the Facebook traffic, and 25% of search. And 12% of the search went globally to that sector, went to them. But if you look at the impact on their numbers, that e-commerce in 1 year went from 0 to 11% of their sales on this basis. And the e-commerce side, so not from 1%, it grew to 11%, but the e-commerce grew by 40% year on year, just through the application. Everything's got, it's horses for courses, but it's that you've got to merge your digital strategies and your voice strategies into one to offer a seamless customer experience at the end of the day.
Okay, so it sounds like what you're saying is that if you implement a digital go-to-market strategy, that it can significantly increase your business, but I guess at the same time it also increases the ability to need to serve those clients and that growth
Correct.
at the same time. Yeah,
absolutely right. I mean, it's not, that's why, you know, and every business will have their own use case, and you know, and you know, the very important point I think we see is that you can't do everything at once. Pick some low-hanging fruit, do that, improve that. But you've got to build that single chain to see the benefits, and then you gradually get momentum. So you need to choose a partner that can walk that road with you, and can plan that with you, and assist with those and offer the continuity. Yeah.
No, that's wise advice. Thank you. Clinton, you've had a moment to think about it. What's been happening in your business that you've learned?
Nev, just to add on and maybe just to summarize for me, but the world of digital disruption is certainly on us all. The need to talk to customers, as we've said, when, how they like. But most importantly, in this digital disruption, I think a few key critical parts have come out, and that's understanding clients and their business. Back to what David was saying, you can't do it all at once. And whilst some companies may think they'd like to, for us in the BPO sector, holding that customer's hand, walking with them on the journey, ensures that we found the right fit partner. Because inevitably, in any business scenario, things are going to go wrong. And it's to be able to work together with client, customer, partner in that ecosystem to say, how do we provide the best outcome? And in today's world, being agile to the flexes and changes that take place in the market, from both a customer, from a company client perspective, has been probably the most key critical component to some of our success in just being able to better serve our clients, better serve our clients' customers. And through that has been the own internal process from our people side, and understanding the client's got a key critical component to satisfy their customer and their business. We as the BPO partner, understanding our people, assessing for the right fits, ensuring we've got the right team on the bus, the right talent serving the customer's customer. The closer we can bring that together through data, people, technology, is the world of our work. Yeah. So extremely excited what the future holds. And when I say the future, I'm not talking the next 30 years, because in the next 12 months, the hockey stick growth curve that's taken place in this digital disruption, in the digital market, in the digital landscape, of the insatiable desire of consumers to consume data, information, as do we all, is how best we serve that.
Yeah. No, that's very good. Thank you, Clinton. I just want to ask, I see Keith has just dropped a little message. He's dropping off, but if anyone has a question, we've got a few minutes left, then please just drop it into the chat. We do have some time left. I'm going to close up because we are getting to an end, and if I see any questions, we'll jump into those and have a look. But talking about the future, you know, the near future, Clinton, I'm going to ask you, David, very quickly, you know, what do you see the biggest impact technologies are going to have in the next year on everything we've spoken about today? What do you think the biggest impact is going to be?
I think most businesses will deploy either a conversational text agent or a text-to-speech and speech-to-text. Voice sentiment analysis has got an important role to play. There's an important role to be played in terms of machine learning or insights. And for that, you know, people use business intelligence tools for many years now with great success. It's just adding another dimension into that to spot the patterns. So perhaps, you know, those tools will rather go pointed into those insight tools. And in fact, those insight tools will come with their own capabilities to do that. So therefore, it does mean that one would probably have to expose those customer-specific components to that to your agents, such that you actually can give more context. You can shift from reactive to proactive.
Werner, what about you?
Yes, absolutely. I think with the conversational AI being very topical and real, I mean, the amount of, I'm amazed every day using generative AI, what it can do. I mean, it is really, it's such a helpful ability. It's man and machine working together. Generative AI is man and machine working together. And I think that is the topic of where we've seen all industrial revolutions happening. It's the ability for man and machine working and moving closer together. I think there's a lot of hype being created around job security, and there is cause for concern, and there's cause for to be alarmed, because that creates another wave of skills investment that needed to help the workforce upskill themselves. So, and it's a natural evolution process that's very needed. But I think the exciting thing is that man and machine working together, and in a way where machine is being used for the things that it's good at, and the human being still being paramount and pivotal to that engagement with clients.
Right. Thank you, Clinton. What are you planning for the next year?
Wonderful question, Nev. We're going to try to take over the world one bite at a time. but on a serious note, I think it's to be curious about technologies, to be curious about the future way of work as we go through being disrupted in the historic way we've always done things, and to embrace it with optimism and engagement, and to try and test many things. And because they've taken on and potentially fail, to fail forward, fail fast, and move on. And then it's an iterative process to get it right, with the end state goal of having that utopian that will better serve customers more effectively, more efficiently, and through the right channels of communication.
Brilliant. I like that. So I want to thank our panel members. Thank you. I think this has been most engaging. Pity we didn't have more time. But I think I've taken a lot out of it. I've learned. Hopefully everybody on the call has learned as well. So I'd like to thank everyone, David, Clinton, Werner, thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll be back. We'll be back, certainly be back next month with a new discussion point and a new panel. So I look forward to that. If there are any further comments, or please email me. My email is neville@bpesa.org.za. If anyone wants to participate in future sessions, please feel free to reach out to me. But thank you very much, and thanks for everyone's time.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.